Now that we have a really good understanding of what Node is and the fact that it is a utility that allows us to execute JavaScript on a local machine and provides bindings to the operating system and to the machine hardware so that we can execute complex JavaScript programs on computers and servers rather than just in the browser. Before we can begin to execute or write those programs, we're going to go ahead and install Node on our machine. So let's go ahead and open up Safari. Let's do a search for Node.js. The first one that should come up in your Google search is going to be nodejs.org. So let's go ahead and click on that. Now if we see here, we've got two versions of Node that are actually displayed on the home page. We've got an LTS version, which stands for long-term support, meaning that it is the version that most production applications are going to be running on because it is the one that the Node developers guarantee that they are going to support for a long period of time, so several years. That is the one that they are going to patch, and they will patch really quickly when there are security concerns or security issues. And the alternative is the current version. Now the current version is going to have the latest and greatest features that are provided by Node when it comes to the JavaScript language, as well as the ability to interact with a computer's operating system and the hardware. By latest and greatest, I mean that every time they change the ECMA script guidelines or standard off of which JavaScript is created, the Node team is going to try to implement those features as quickly as possible within the current version of Node. Because it's going to have all the latest and greatest features, that means there is the potential for it to have security weaknesses and issues as well as bugs that you aren't going to want in a production application. And that would be the reason why the majority of production applications are going to be running the LTS version. And then if you're learning Node or playing around with the latest features or trying to figure out what's going to happen when you need to transfer a production application to the next version of Node, you would be using this one. One of the biggest issues that JavaScript Node developers have run into is the fact that over time you end up having multiple applications or programs running in different versions of Node. In other words, you might, if you've been doing it a long time, have programs or NPM modules, packages that are running in older versions of Node that are no longer supported, that are over here in this area. And you might have production applications running in an LTS version, and then you may have applications that you are currently working on that are running in the current version of Node. And each time that you need to go modify, take care of, update, or correct or add new features to any of those different applications, you need that version of Node that it was built on. Well, with these installation packages, these binaries that you can download from the Node website, you can only install a single version at a time, and that's the only version available on your machine. So if I needed to handle something in the LTS, but I had the currently installed, I would have to uninstall it and then install the LTS version, work on whatever it was, and then if I needed to go back to some current project, I would have to uninstall the LTS and go back to the current. You can see how this could become a problem as you become a more prolific Node and JavaScript developer. In order to solve that, the development community around Node has created different utilities that allow us to install multiple versions of Node at the same time and switch between them whenever we need to without uninstalling and reinstalling the Node packages. These are called version managers. And the one that we're going to use with our Node, oops, I didn't want to click on that, within our system is going to be the NVM or Node Version Manager, and that's the one we are going to install on our operating system. So here I have a clean installation of MacOS X. It is most likely representational of what your current operating system or the state of your current operating system is. If you're a brand new developer, you most likely don't have Node already installed. So I'm going to assume that you don't have Node installed, and this is a fairly clean installation of Mac OS X, which means you should be able to follow through with all of this tutorial without running into any crazy issues. So let's kick off by looking up the Node Version Manager package and see what it takes to get that installed. So NVM is what it's called, or the Node Version Manager. And when you type NVM in Google, it usually comes up with the Node Version Manager as the first one in your search results. So Node Version Manager, again, it allows us to manage different versions of Node on our machine at the same time. So I'm going to go ahead and scroll right here to the update and install script. Let's go up just a little bit. Seems to be really sensitive on this virtual machine. All right. So to install, we need to install from a remote repository on the internet, which is where the installation script lives. So we can do that with an install script or with a curl or a wget command. Now, curl is a utility that you can install on your Mac that allows you to fetch information from across the internet over HTTP or HTTPS. Same thing goes with wget. They're pretty much the same type of utility and do the same thing. Now, when this gets installed, it is going to be a utility that is available to us in our terminal. It's not going to be a graphical user interface. In other words, it's nothing like Safari, where we actually can visually see things, we can click on buttons, we can type inside of text boxes. That's not what the terminal is for, or that's not what this application is for. It's going to be a terminal application. Now, as you become a programmer, you have to get used to working in the terminal in Mac. And the terminal, if you want to look it up, you can do a command space, and that'll open up Spotlight. And you can type in terminal. And you will see that the top hit is going to be a terminal. It looks like a black box with a greater than sign in it and an underscore. This is the terminal. And this is where we are going to be living as we are installing Node and the Node Version Manager. Terminal is simply a text-based method for interacting with your computer by simply typing text-based commands. And that's what Node will end up being once it's installed, is a text command that you can type Node and then provide it a JavaScript file, and it will execute that file and perform the commands that are in it. So we'll go ahead and put our terminal right over here. And so that you can actually see what I'm typing, I'm going to go ahead and increase the font on my terminal and make it a little bit easier for you to see. And then I'm going to move my browser over here so that we can look at the browser and at the terminal at the same time. Now, to install our Node Version Manager, we can use an install script, or we can run these commands manually. So let's go ahead and look at this install script really quick. I'm going to go ahead and open that up in a new tab. Go ahead and look down at this. So this script right here is what would be run. It's install.sh. So it is a bash script, or a bash shell script, that goes through and makes modifications to your operating system and kind of integrates Node Version Manager with your operating system, and provides the ability for the binaries, or the files that actually execute the code against the operating system, to be able to do that and install different versions of Node. It also sets up all the folder structure for holding and containing all the different versions of Node. So let's run back here. You can see this install.sh, so that's the script that gets run. And so before we can do that, we need to install curl and wget on our machine. Let's verify and see if curl or wget is available on our machine right now. So we go back to our terminal and let's type curl and hit enter. And it looks like curl is available on our machine, so it doesn't really need to be installed. The other thing that we need in order to install NVM on our machine and then Node when we're ready to do it is we're going to need to use Git, because a lot of the binaries and everything are actually living inside of Git repositories. And if our machine can't speak Git, or if we don't have those utilities, then it can't download from Git and it can't unpackage those binaries that we need. So let's check and see if we already have Git, or see if our machine understands Git. And it doesn't understand Git, and that's because this clean installation, it's going to need the command line developer tools that Apple provides for us. And so we can go ahead and we could install that. We accept the agreement. And then it's going to go ahead and download and install all of the command line developer tools that Apple provides us for Xcode if we were doing iPhone or iOS development. And since we're not doing that, we're not worried about opening Xcode or messing around with Xcode. So we'll just go ahead and let macOS X go through and install all of the developer tools for us that we can use. And one of those tools is Git. Now we have tons of videos on Git. Maybe you've already watched them. If you haven't, make sure you go to the LMS and go read through watch all of the Git videos so you understand Git. And while we're waiting for this, I'll just go ahead and explain it. Git is for source control or source management. It allows us to have repositories where we save our code and we keep it safe, and we can have versions of it or history over time so we can see what's happened to it. Looks like it's done. We'll go ahead and click done. Now let's type Git again and see if we get Git. And yes, we have Git, so I'm going to go ahead and type clear to clear up my terminal so I don't have all that text in it. All right, so we've got curl and we've got Git, and now we can install NVM on our machine. To do that, we're just going to go ahead and copy this command right here for our command line. So just copy the entire thing, go back to your terminal, paste it, hit enter. Now it's going to run through downloading all of your NVM binaries. It's going to set up the folder structure. It's going to put them in there. Now one thing, when you've got a clean installation of OS X, one thing you might run into is that it can't find your bash RC or your bash profile files. Now what these are files that your terminal uses in order to load in components and tools that you're adding that don't come packaged default with your terminal in your operating system. And when it can't find those files, it can't add the path to your Node version manager or to the other utilities that you install as you are programming. So one thing you need to have is a bash RC or a bash profile in order for these utilities to kind of attach themselves to the terminal. Now this is pretty technical and kind of complex, and it's not really something you need to fully understand right now, but this kind of 30,000 foot overview for you should help you understand that right now, since we don't have a bash RC or a bash profile for NVM to attach itself to the terminal so that we have access to it, we will find that when we try to run the command NVM right here, we're going to get a command not found. In other words, it doesn't know what NVM is because those packages, those binaries that represent the NVM tools, terminal can't find because it hasn't attached itself to your terminal. So in order to get it to attach itself to the terminal, we will need to go ahead and make sure that we add a bash profile to our terminal and then rerun the script so that it can actually modify that bash profile and attach itself to our terminal. That way we'll have that NVM command available to us all the time. So to do that, I'm going to go ahead and clear my terminal again so we've got a nice clean space. We're going to go ahead and create a bash profile file so that our terminal can use that and so that NVM can attach itself. So to do that, we use a command called touch. And touch is simply a command that says, hey, go out onto the hard drive and see if this file with the file name that's provided exists. If it doesn't, let's go ahead and create it. So that's all touch really does for us. So touch, and then we do tilde slash. Now tilde slash, what it says is it says, hey, just start at the root of the logged in user's profile folder. And so all it does is goes right back to the currently logged in user, which right now I'm logged in as Tim. And it says from that root folder, tell me if you can find the file that is named like this. And the file is .bash_profile. So again, the tilde says, hey, let's start from the currently logged in user. The slash means let's go to the root folder for that user. and then look for anything that's in there. And we're looking specifically for a file that is .bash_profile. That's BASH_PROFILE. Right? It's all spelt correctly. The command is correct. So when we hit enter, you don't really get any feedback back because touch just really goes, looks. If the file's there, it just leaves it alone. If the file isn't there, it will create the file. So now we should have a bash profile file, which means we can go ahead and try running our command to install NVM again. Hit enter. And this time we shouldn't see an error where it says it couldn't find a profile. Here we can see that it says appending NVM source string to users, Tim, and then .bash profile. Here's the part where I was talking about the tilde. The tilde says, hey, go all the way back to the user profile, which would be in /user/Tim, and then go to the root, which is that /, and then look for the file .bash_profile. Now that it found it, NVM, as it's installing itself, it went ahead and attached itself to it and added this command right here to our bash profile. So now it says go ahead and close your terminal and reopen it to start using NVM. So let's go ahead and close our terminal. Let's get it to stop copying everything. And then let's go ahead and close our terminal. Looks like it's acting funny on us, so let's hit escape. Maybe escape will help us get out of that. It's running into this problem with the virtual machine before. It just acts a little funny. All right, there we go. Close out of the terminal. You shouldn't experience that on your machine. Since I'm using a virtual machine, sometimes it gets a little hung up for some reason. It might be a poor installation of it. So let's go ahead and increase the font size on this terminal again so that you can see what I'm doing. Resize it a little bit. Make sure I can see the bottom of it. All right. So now we've closed it, reopened it. It's using our bash profile. We should be able to type NVM, and we should see all of this. It's all of the help information. You can see NVM-help. So we've got all the help information, and it didn't come back with a command not known or unknown command. That means NVM is installed. We are now good to go with NVM. Now, let's clear our terminal so that we don't have all that garbage to look at. Looks like our virtual machine froze up a little bit. Let's give it a second. There we go. NVM. Oh, we're going to clear it first so that we can actually have a clear terminal. Let's go ahead and do NVM and then -v. Oh, we got to do -v. So NVM --version, and we've got version 0.350. Let's go ahead and clear our terminal. Now, the cool thing about NVM is we can look to see what versions of Node are installed already. So let's do NVM list. And right now, we have no nodes installed. So no node is installed, and we would expect that because we just barely installed NVM. So now let's go ahead and install a version of Node that we want to use. So let's go back to our Node website. We've got a 12.11.1, that is the current, and we've got a 10.16.3 that is the long-term support. And we're going to go ahead and install both and show how we switch between them in order to execute code under different Node versions. So let's install the version 12 first. Now, NVM makes it easy. I can say NVM install, and I can just say 12. And what it'll do is it'll automatically go and find the latest version of 12. And so 12 is the major version, 11 is the minor version, and 1 is the update of the minor version. And so I don't have to type everything. I can just say NVM install 12. It'll go down, download the binaries from the internet, from Node.js.org. Then it will extract them and install them. And then it will add them to our list of installed nodes. So let's do NVM list again. And this time, it shows that we actually have an installed version. It is the 12.11.1, which is exactly what the current is on the website. And it has set it as our default node. So now we should be able to, oops, I'm going to type clear. We should be able to ask Node for its version. So Node -v, it is 12.11.1. So now we have an active version of Node that we could execute JavaScript code against. Let's go ahead and install another version of Node. So let's do nvm install, and let's do 10 and see if it'll give us our latest long-term support version. And we do see it gave us 10.16.3, which matches our long-term support one. So let's go ahead and clear our console, and let's see nvm list. Let's see how many nodes we've got installed. We've got a 10.16.3 as well as a 12.11.1. So we now have the LTS as well as the current. And because we just installed the 10, NVM automatically makes it the active version for us because it assumes that if we just installed it, we want to use it. So let's look at Node. Let's say Node -v, and we should see that it is now the 10.16.3 instead of the 12.11.1. So that's perfect. Let's go ahead and switch. Let's say Node use 12. Oh, we got an error right there. Oh, because I used Node. We actually don't want Node. We want to use NVM. NVM use 12. So now it says now using Node 12.11.1. So if we say Node -v, we should see that it's 12.11.1. And if we do nvm list, we should see that 12 is the currently selected one. We see that with this arrow right here. And we can also see what the default version of Node is. So if I close this terminal and then I open up a new terminal, and let's get that text size back up so you can see what we're doing. If I open up a new terminal and I say Node -v, it's 12.11.1 because that is the default. So every time I open up a terminal now, NVM will automatically make sure that Node has been set in the path for my terminal to be the latest version. And there are commands to change the default version of Node. So if the current version is one that you only use when you're exploring new features, but most of the time you are running the LTS version, then you're going to want to go ahead and use NVM to make the 10 version your default. So now we've got Node running, we've got multiple versions, we can switch behind them, and the current version is our default version. And we're going to go ahead and leave it at that because everything that we're going to learn, we're probably going to be doing it against the current version for now.